millionaire's paraplegic son falls into the pool, and only the maid knows the truth. The sparkling blue water of the Harper Estate pool shimmered under the blistering summer sun, untouched, almost mocking in its calm. The sprawling New York mansion loomed above, dripping in luxury. But inside, something had snapped. Adrian Harper was supposed to be untouchable. Son of one of Manhattan's richest tycoons, he lived loud and wild. Fast cars, late nights, reckless thrills. It was the life. But today, that changed. Today, Adrian lay at the bottom of that very pool, not moving. No one saw what really happened beneath the surface. The screams came first. Panicked shouts cut through the heavy afternoon air as someone, no one exactly sure who, dove in to pull Adrian out. His limbs were limp, his face pale, the chilling silence after the chaos pressing down. When the paramedics arrived, the devastating truth aired out like a dark secret no one wanted to whisper. Adrian Harper was para. The servants stiffened, their eyes flickering with something between fear and guilt. Upstairs, his father remained icy calm, but his clenched jaw and steely stare said more than words ever could. And only one person held the key: Clara, the housekeeper. Clara had been with the Harpers for years, fading into the background like a shadow in their grand halls. But today, she couldn't look away. She saw things others missed. The small, almost invisible bruises on Adrian's forearms. The way his phone buzzed with ignored messages bearing warnings. The cold dinner served in silence by a father who expected his son to snap out of this mess like it was just another tantrum. The discarded note folded beneath a poolside chair, soaked and smudged, words half erased but screaming for help. Adrian's fall wasn't a simple accident. Not this time. Nobody noticed when Clara slipped near the pool after the chaos. Her trembling hands pulling from the water a discarded bracelet, delicate and The summer heat pressed down, making the mansion's gleam feel brittle and cracked underneath. Everyone was trapped in their roles. The perfect family, the loyal servants, the ruthless business legacy soon at stake. But Clara held a secret that could unravel it all, shatter the perfect illusion, and pull open wounds too deep to heal. Adrian's eyes haunted her memory. The shock, the pain, the burnout of a life spun out of control, crashing into cold reality. And beneath it, something darker. A call for help no one dared answer. Was the truth worth exposing? Could a house built on power survive its own secrets? Clara's quiet gaze shifted between the titans of the family and the boy who once ruled their world. The question hung heavy, unsaid and raw. What happens when silence is the deadliest lie of all? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. And while you're at it, Leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Clara's fingers trembled as she held the bracelet, damp and cold in her palm. The faint engraving blurred by water. Help me. No doubt about it. Only Adrian could wear something like this. No, a secret message buried in plain sight. Her breath caught when the front door slammed open. Voices rush in, sharp and urgent. Where is he? Where's Adrian? His father's voice sliced through the quiet, steel in every word. Clara's heart pounded. She didn't know if she had the guts to speak. But suddenly, the housekeeper's small world shattered all at once. A loud crash echoed from the upper floor, glass breaking. Then a harsh, strangled gasp. Everyone froze. Then footsteps thundered down the grand staircase. Adrian's younger sister, Emily, appeared. A wild look in her eyes and tears streaming down her face. She stumbled into the hallway, clutching a crumpled envelope, heavy in her fist. "This," she gasped, voice cracking. "It's not an accident." The room tightened around the words. Suspicion flared like wildfire, faces snapping toward each other, sharp and accusing. Clara stepped forward, heart tightening. "There's more. Something you all need to see." She handed the bracelet to Emily. The girl's fingers trembled as she opened the note she'd been holding, a letter from Adrian. It wasn't just a plea for help. It was a confession. "I'm not paralyzed by accident, Dad." The letter's ink smudged, but the meaning hit like a thunderclap. Adrian had faked his condition. A gasp, a collective intake of shocked breath, rippled through the room. Emily's voice broke the silence. "I found this in Dad's study. It's proof. Medical records, altered scans. Dad's been hiding the truth. Adrian's not hurt. It's all a twisted game, too." Suddenly the lights snapped off. Darkness swallowed the room. Fear crawled up spines. Then a soft thud, barely heard over pounding hearts. When the power flickered back on, Emily was gone. The house froze. His father's face was stone, unreadable but cold as ice. Clara's chest tightened so hard, it was hard to breathe. How deep did the lie go? Who was playing who? And why? The past hour, Adrian's fall, the bruises, the ignored texts, the silence. It wasn't the surface she should have been watching. It was what was hidden beneath. The twisted truth lurking in every shadow of the Harper mansion. And now, with Emily vanished, probably because she knew too much, the fragile balance shattered. Only Clara stood still, heart pounding, mind racing. What else are they hiding? And how far will they go to keep it buried? The lights snapped back on. Everyone's eyes darted wildly around the room. But Emily was nowhere to be seen. A heavy silence fell, the kind that presses on your ribs and steals your breath. "Emily!" Clara's voice cracked, the tight lump in her throat making it hard to call out. "Where is she?" someone whispered, panic threading through the words. Then, before anyone could answer, the chandelier above them groaned. A sharp creak. A terrible cracking noise. The massive glass fixture shuddered and then shattered. Droplets of crystal raining down like shards of ice. Everyone gasped and ducked, but in the chaos, no one noticed the figure standing perfectly still by the doorway, Adrian. Except something was wrong. He wasn't slouched, pale, or helpless. His eyes burned with a cold, dark fire. And as the crystals clattered at his feet, Adrian spoke for the first time since the fall. I didn't fall. His voice was calm. Too calm. Everyone froze. The buzzing tension snapped tight. What do you mean? His father stammered, stepping forward, his usual iron calm cracked by disbelief. Adrian's stare cut through the room like a knife. That pool, the paralysis, all of it, a lie. But the letter, Clara whispered, clutching the bracelet tighter. You said? Adrian's lips curled into a slow, almost cruel smile. Fake. Every bruise, every sleepless night, every desperate text ignored. It was me. I wanted out. The room blurred. Faces drained of color. Why? Millie's voice came from the shadows. Then she stepped forward, holding something small in her hand. A syringe, full of clear liquid. Everyone's eyes locked on the needle, shaking in her trembling grip. Adrian's smile faded. I never lost control. Not like you thought. Suddenly, the truth exploded out. Emily's voice trembled, but didn't break. I found this in Dad's medical cabinet. That's what's been keeping you paralyzed. A drug. You've been awake, trapped in your own body by choice. The father's face twisted, veins pulsing under cold skin. It was necessary for the family. His voice turned low and dangerous. No, Clara whispered, heart splintering. You wanted him hidden, broken, so you could control everything. His wealth, his name. Adrian stepped forward, slow and steady. His hand landed on the forgotten wheelchair pushed aside near the wall. He rolled it out with a harsh scrape. Then he stood up, steady, strong, walking. The room gasped, voices catching in stunned disbelief. Clara's breath hitched. The boy they thought broken was whole. Not only that, but weaponized. All those horrible suspicions, the silence, the fear, none touched what this meant. Adrian Harper was no victim. He was the architect. And Emily, his sister, was no accident in this. Her escape had been planned because she knew the final secret. The real reason Adrian wanted the world to see him as broken, to hide what he'd done. The truth wasn't about faking paralysis. It was what he'd been running from all along. Suddenly, a sharp knock came at the door. The houseguards flinched, rushing to open it. A detective stepped in, holding a folder fat with papers and photos. His grim eyes swept the room. At last, he said slowly, we've found the third body. Silence hit like a hammer. Third body? Clara's voice was barely a whisper, shaking all over. Adrian's gaze didn't flinch. Third? Emily swallowed. the syringe dropping from her hand, shattering on the floor. The foundation of everything collapsed. Someone else had been hurt. Something worse than anyone imagined. And now it was coming home. The truth was darker than any letter, and no one could look away anymore. What had really happened beneath the surface of the Harper mansion? And who was the real monster hiding behind the mask of a family's lies? The detective's words hung heavy in the air. Third body. The room spun. Breath stopped. Eyes darted between faces etched with terror and disbelief. Clara's fingers curled into fists, her nails digging into palms. The walls seemed to close in. This was bigger than anyone had dared imagine. Third body? Emily's voice cracked, barely a whisper. Her hands trembled so much, the syringe clattered and shattered on the marble floor. Glass scattered, catching the harsh light like tiny knives. No one moved. The father's jaw clenched so tight, veins pulsed at his temple. His icy stare locked on the detective. "Explain," he growled. The detective nodded grimly, flipping open the folder. Photos spilled out, grainy images from a security camera tucked in a forgotten corner of the mansion. A pale figure, a woman, dragged through a dim hallway. Blood slick on the carpet. A flash of desperate struggle. Then, silence. The room sucked in a collective gasp. "Who is she?" Clara found her voice barely steady. "Rachel," the detective said, "the Harpers' former maid. She disappeared last month. Reported missing. Now, found." Silence deepened, thick and suffocating. And then, a sharp clang echoed from the stairs. Everyone whirled toward the sound. There, standing in the shadows, was Adrian's father. Blood soaked the front of his crisp white shirt. His hands, still trembling, gripped a heavy, ornate letter opener, the same one used earlier to tear through envelopes, now dripping dark red. His eyes burned with something wild. Not calm control. Madness. "Rachel's death?" he snarled. "I didn't hide it. I ended it. She was going to ruin us." Clara's breath hitched. The room tipped sideways. Emily stumbled back, eyes wide, tears streaming. You killed her?" The father's laugh cracked, chilling every bone in the room. "She was blackmailing me, threatening to spill everything. The lies, the secrets, your brother's little game." The paralysis faked to cover darker sins. "I protected this family." "But at what cost?" Clara whispered, stepping forward, voice shaking. "Blood on your hands. Innocent blood." Adrian's face shifted. Raw shock, then cold fury. "You lied to us all." "Lies keep families alive," the father hissed. Suddenly, the ground seemed to shift beneath them. The detective spoke again, voice low but shaking. "We've uncovered more, not just Rachel. There were 2 others. Unmarked graves on Harper property, buried under the East Wing construction site. Women. Staff. His eyes flicked between father and son. They all disappeared after asking questions. A harsh silence broke, like a thunderclap. Questions. Adrian repeated bitterly. We were never supposed to know. Emily's gaze dropped to the broken syringe at her feet. A weapon, a warning, a truth. Dad controlled everything, forced Adrian into this act, kept us blind and silent. Clara swallowed hard, her chest tightened as fear and rage warred inside her. The perfect family was a house of horrors. And then, a sudden, piercing scream shattered the moment. They all spun. From the back hallway, a figure stumbled forward. It was Rachel, pale, bruised, clutching her side, her eyes wild with desperation. She collapsed on the polished floor, blood pooling beneath her. "I'm alive," she gasped, voice ragged and raw. The room froze, all breath lost. Then, the unbelievable truth hammered down. Rachel had faked her death. Every single one of them. The secrets, the lies, the deaths. It was a staged nightmare. And now she was back, hunting, watching, waiting. The real game was only just beginning. Clara's heart pounded so loud, it almost drowned out the gasps, the cries. What did she know? Tss. Who else was caught in this web? And most terrifying, who was the true monster? Barely a breath, eyes burning. You think you're safe? Nobody leaves the Harper mansion unscathed. The walls held their breath. The truth wasn't just buried beneath the surface. It was alive and hungry. What happens now? Rachel's whisper hung in the still air like a warning siren. You think you're safe? Nobody leaves the Sinclair estate unscathed. The room held its breath. The silence stretched, thick and unbearable, broken only by distant thunder, rumbling like the warning crack of a storm. Clara's heart hammered like a frantic drum. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the bracelet she'd been clutching. Then, without a sound, without a warning, a sharp click snapped through the room. The grand front doors, locked tight moments ago, burst open with a brutal slam, banging against the walls like a gunshot. A gust of cold wind whipped in, tossing papers, rustling curtains, stealing the warmth from the air. And behind the doors stepped someone no one expected. Not Rachel, not the police, but a man, older, wearing a long coat soaked from the rain, eyes sharp and colder than ice. He paused, his gaze sweeping the frightened faces, cold, unreadable. And then, with a voice that cracked the tension like glass breaking, he said, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's time you all knew the real truth." Everyone stilled, the air thickening. Clara's mouth went dry. Emily's lips parted like she was about to scream. Adrian's father's face paled. The color drained so fast, it looked like a mask melting. Adrian himself stepped forward, eyes burning, pale light flickering beneath his outrage and confusion. The man peeled off his soaked coat. Underneath, a security badge, G, not the one who came before. Different. I'm Detective Marshall. I've been following this case from the start, off the books. There's been a cover-up. Something so deep, it's been hidden in plain sight. A slow murmur rose, confused, scared, angry. Your maid, Rachel? Not missing, not dead. She's been hiding. But what she's running from is nothing compared to this. Marshall's eyes locked onto Adrian. And you, Mr. Sinclair. Your paralysis, the drugs, the letter, all staged to cover this. The room seemed to tilt. What, this? Clara whispered. Her voice cracked like a torn rope. Marshall took a deep breath, eyes darkening. Adrian Sinclair never fell into the pool, not by accident. He was pushed. A gasp, not Rebecca's, not Emily's. It tore from Clara's lips. No, not just pushed, Marshall said, stepping forward, voice low but deadly calm. By your father. Silence exploded. The father's face twisted, rage flaring like wildfire. That's a lie, he shouted, voice breaking. Marshall raised a hand, shaking his head slowly. Look for yourself. He tossed a tablet onto the marble floor. The screen lit up, grainy but undeniable footage. The family froze as the video played. A hidden camera angle, unseen until now. There, by the edge of the pool, the man in the white shirt reached out. He shoved Adrian hard. Not once, but twice. Adrian stumbled, hitting the water with a splash. But it was worse than a shove. The footage zoomed in on a small, glinting object in the father's hand. Something sharp. A knife. He pushed Adrian with one hand. The other held the knife behind his back. Adrian's struggle turned desperate. His eyes wide in shock before he slipped beneath the surface. The father's face hardened into cold stone. I did what I had to, he said quietly, voice void of remorse. Adrian gasped, eyes wild in the footage, but barely a sound came from his choking mouth as the camera cut away. Emily's trembling hands covered her mouth. Clara's chest squeezed tight, like ice wrapped around her ribs. But then Marshall's voice cut deeper. There's more than one secret here. He swiped the screen. A second clip played. This one showed another figure. Someone moving through the dark hallways, days before Rachel's disappearance. A woman, a familiar face. Clara, her own face. Frozen in shock, frozen in the camera's lens. Not as a witness, not as a bystander, but as the one who'd instigated the cover-up. Clara stumbled backward, heart pounding, breath gone. Her secret, her silence, shattered like glass beneath the detective's words. I've been watching you, Marshall said, eyes locking onto Clara now. You weren't innocent. You were part of it. The room spun. Because the person everyone thought was the outsider, the silent, frightened housekeeper, had been the mastermind all along. The quiet shadow that knew everything, saw everything, and hid the darkest truth of all. And now, everything was about to come crashing down. Clara's hands trembled. Her mind raced. How deep did this go? Who could she trust? Because the great Sinclair lie wasn't just about who hurt who. It was about what they all had been forced to become, and who was willing to kill, again, to keep the truth buried. A scream broke loose. The detective spun, but no one moved fast enough. A faint, chilling sound, a faint click whispered through the room. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the Sinclair estate whole. And in the black, a soft, terrible laugh echoed. Cold, cruel. One only Clara recognized. Adrian. The darkness pressed down like a weight, thick and suffocating. The room held its breath, frozen and afraid. A soft laugh rolled through the black, low, cold, cruel. Adrian's voice. Then, a sudden, sharp crack echoed, breaking the silence. The chandelier's broken shards crashed again, scattering like deadly rain. Panic snapped alive in the room's frozen limbs. But the lights didn't come back. Only shadows shifted in the gloom. Clara's heart thudded hard, nearly shattering her ribs. Her hands trembled in the dark, clutching the bracelet, a fragile knot tied to a secret screaming in her palm. Suddenly, a metallic clatter sounded near the door. Footsteps, quick, heavy, urgent, approached through the black. A voice rough and ragged. "Don't move." Everyone froze tighter than breath. Then, an eruption of noise. A loud bang, a scream, followed by gasps. The detective hit the floor, blood blooming beneath his temple. His badge clattered against the marble. "No!" Clara cried, lunging forward, hands fumbling to find him. But a cold, merciless hand yanked her back. "Stay down," snarled the deep voice again. More footsteps stormed the room. Out of the darkness, Adrian stepped forward. Not slow now, not weak. His face split in a wild grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Surprise!" he hissed. But then, the world flipped in an instant. A harsh whisper in Clara's ear. Ice and venom mixed. "I'm done playing." Adrian moved faster than thought, lunging at his father, who barely dodged. The old man stumbled back, shock twisting his face. Emily screamed and scrambled toward the fallen detective. Panic tangled with disbelief. But Clara's eyes locked onto something behind Adrian, shining cold in the dim light. A gun, held steady, not in Adrian's hand. A figure slipped from the shadows, the last person anyone expected. Rachel, pale as a ghost, eyes blazing with fury and fear. The room gasped, 1,000 questions tumbling out in whispers. Rachel raised the gun. "Enough lies," she spat. "This ends now." The father's face twisted in fury and fear. Adrian's grin faltered. "Rachel," Emily whispered, voice breaking. Rachel's eyes flicked to Clara, sharp, accusing. "And you," she snarled, "you've been hiding more than just secrets." Clara's breath hitched. The bracelet slipped from her fingers, clanging to the floor. Rachel's voice cracked loud. "I'm not the villain. You all are." A sudden bang shattered the fragile silence. A bullet tore through the air, striking the doorframe inches from Rachel. Chaos exploded. Adrian spun, eyes wild. His father shouted, stumbling toward the shadows. Clara dove toward Emily, but Ben, a terrible truth seized the room. The detective wasn't dead. He was alive, but barely. Pain twisted his face as he gasped. "They're after all of us!" A choking sob escaped Clara. The gun fired again. A reckless shot into the ceiling. The room filled with deafening alarm bells. The estate's security screaming into the night. The house guards poured in, guns raised, shouting commands. But the damage was done. The mad circle had shattered. The masks were ripped away. And in the middle of it all, Adrian stepped through the chaos, eyes wild, voice low. "I never wanted any of this." Suddenly, his hands went to his throat, trembling, grasping, fingers clawing wildly as he collapsed to the floor, coughing hard. Emily and Clara rushed to him. Detective Marshall's voice broke through the din, strained, urgent. "Check him. Now. He's been poisoned." "Poisoned?" The room spiraled, faces draining of color. Emily's scream caught in her throat. Adrian's eyes fluttered, dark pools drowning in shock. Then, a voice cold and steady cut through the panic. From the darkness stepped another figure, a woman. Her smile was calm, too calm. Her eyes glittered like knives. "Surprise," she said softly. The room froze. Clara gasped, her mind shattering. "This can't be!" The woman pulled back her hood, and there, in the harsh emergency light flickering, was Clara. Not just Clara the housekeeper, but someone else entirely. Someone none of them had expected at all. The real Clara, the one no one ever saw. And the monster who had pulled every string all along. Everything. The lies, the deaths, the secrets, was her plan, her game. A cold, terrible silence swallowed the room. Then the final question hung heavy in the air. Who is the real victim? And who is the true monster? Because the greatest lie of all was what they thought was Clara. The sound of sirens cut through the night, but the Harper estate was already lost. And the fight for truth, for survival, was just beginning. The flashing red and blue lights smeared over the broken glass and blood on the marble floor, casting harsh stripes across the shaking heart slamming against ribs, heavy as stone. But before anyone could speak, before chaos could swallow them whole, a sudden deep rumble shook the floor. The room trembled. Crystal dust danced in the stale air. Walls groaned. A crack ripped through the ceiling, like the house itself was tearing apart. Everyone looked up. Screams caught in throats, and then the ceiling shattered. A second figure dropped down into the room. Not a stranger, not a new player. It was Adrian. Only this Adrian was different. Older, harsher. Eyes black as night. He landed silently, like a ghost, and slowed the madness around him with one look. Clara's mouth went dry. Her legs barely held her. "How?" she stammered. The older Adrian's lips curled into a bitter, broken smile. "I never left," he said quietly, voice cracked but deadly certain. "I was never in that pool." Whispers turned to stunned gasps. The younger Adrian blinked, confusion and fury twisting his features. "No!" he spat. "You're not real." The older Adrian stepped forward, calm and cold. "I am. And everything you think you knew, it's all a lie." Clara's hands trembled. The bracelet slipped through her fingers again. The room held its breath. Then, suddenly, the detective moaned, struggling to push himself up. "Wait! Hold on!" he croaked, hand reaching for his radio, voice weak but urgent. "Listen," the older Adrian said, voice cutting through the tension. "There's no cover-up, no fake paralyzing drugs, no staged death. You got it all backwards." "What do you mean?" she whispered. The older Adrian took a shakier breath. "I'm the real victim." A pause, stretched, thick like fog. "No," the younger Adrian barked. "You're the monster. You tried to kill me. You pushed me in the pool. You wanted to bury us all." "No," the man insisted. "I saved you. I saved myself. And this house." He turned slowly to the crowd. "I was trapped, controlled. That day, I staged my death, hid in the shadows, built this story you believed. Clara's mind whirled, her heart thudding, thunderous questions, as a sick realization crept in. The man they'd called Adrian's father? The one in the white shirt, the knife, the lies? He wasn't the father at all. He was the older Adrian, the real master behind the mask. The true puppet master. The one who'd orchestrated every devilish move, every whispered threat, every ghost buried beneath the estate's foundations. The man everyone called Dad was just the boy they thought was broken. Swallowing hard, the younger Adrian's defiant anger flickered and dimmed like a candle in a storm. "No," he breathed, "that's not possible." But the older Adrian smiled, grim, bitter, victorious. "Believe what you want," he said, "but you're still trapped in my game." The room fell into a heavy silence, the weight of betrayal worse than a physical blow. Clara sank to her knees, breath gone, mind unraveling. How deep was this poison? What nightmare had they all been living? And most of all, who could anyone trust when even the blood was a lie? Outside, the thunder crashed again, breaking the silence, but offering no answers, just questions, and the cold certainty that the real nightmare was only just beginning. The thunder cracked again, rattling the windows like a warning. The room felt tight, breath trapped like a bird fluttering in a cage. Clara sank lower, the bracelet cold and slippery in her clenched fist. Her mind spun, caught between disbelief and rising dread. Older Adrian stood tall, eyes hollow but burning with bitter control. Younger Adrian trembled, stunned, backing away like the floor beneath him was tilting. Emily's gaze darted between them, her voice barely a whisper, shaking. This can't be true. Suddenly, a deep groan echoed through the mansion, low and resonant. The chandeliers quivered, the floor beneath them rumbled, the walls creaked like they might cave in. And then, an explosion of cracking, splintering wood shattered the tense silence. A hidden door swung open, swallowing half the room's light. From that darkness stepped a woman. Not pale, not frail, not afraid. Her eyes sparked like fire, and her voice cut through everything. Enough. She moved forward, steady and cold. Clara's breath hitched. It was their mother, Lydia Harper, alive, breathing, watching. The room froze as Lydia's gaze landed on the crowd, her eyes sharp, unreadable. You think you know the truth? Her voice, a low blade slicing the thick air. Old Adrian's face paled. You're dead, Emily stuttered. We were told, dead? Lydia's lips twisted into a bitter smile. No, they buried lies, not me. Her eyes fixed on younger Adrian. You've been playing children's games, while I was fighting for this family's survival. Then Lydia's eyes found Clara. You, quiet shadow, have no idea how deep your part runs. Clara stiffened, heart pounding. The weight of secrets pressed crushingly. Lydia raised a trembling hand, pulling back her sleeve, revealing a faint, jagged scar circling her wrist. Poisoned, she whispered. Not fatally, but enough to keep me hidden. Enough for them to silence me. She took a slow step forward. The older Adrian who just spoke? Her voice sharpened. A lie I sent to haunt this house. My son? No. A shadow I created to protect us. Gasps erupted. Clara's throat tightened. What do you mean? Lydia's eyes glistened with pain. He never existed. I invented him to keep the family image intact, to cover the horrors happening behind these walls. A long pause. Then her voice broke with raw grief. The real monster didn't hide in shadows. It wore a familiar face. She dropped something to the floor. A crumpled photo, old and stained. The crowd leaned in. In the grainy image, younger Adrian standing close to their father, arms wrapped tight. But the man's eyes were cold, empty, dangerous. Lydia's voice cracked. The mastermind was never who you thought. Suddenly, younger Adrian's face twisted, furious, desperate. No, he snapped. You're lying. But why? Emily whispered, eyes wide, shaking. Lydia swallowed hard. Because truth has a price. And in this family, it's blood. The ceiling above them groaned again. Danger close. The detective groaned on the floor, struggling to rise. Wait! His voice was weak but firm. Before anyone could respond, a deafening crack ripped through the house. The grand staircase exploded in a shower of splinters. Dust filled the air. Screams echoed. A shadow lunged from the debris, knocking Emily to the floor. It was the man whom everyone believed was the father. He was alive, but his face was twisted in rage, eyes wild, bleeding from a heavy wound above his temple. Clara scrambled forward, heart pounding. "Dad? How?" he sneered, voice ragged. "You fools! Playing detectives in a game you'll never win." He staggered, pulling a bloodied handgun from his coat. It was never about truth. A shot rang out. Silence crashed. Then Emily screamed. Clara's hands shook as she helped her sister up. The man's grin widened, savage. "This house eats its children." Suddenly, the power snapped off. Pitch black swallowed everything. Voices panicked. Footsteps ran. A chilling laugh echoed. Low, victorious. "Welcome to the real nightmare." And through the darkness, a new secret whispered in the silence. One that would tear the Harper family apart forever. Who was protecting who? And what had they all been running from all along? The power cut swallowed the room whole, black as pitch. Faint gasps and frantic whispers filled the air. Hearts pounded like thunder inside chests that suddenly felt too tight, too small. Clara's hands were shaking so badly she could barely catch Emily as she stumbled. The scent of dust and blood hung heavy, bitter against their skin. Somewhere, a slow drip echoed, water hitting marble, steady and cruel. "Stay close," Clara whispered, voice breaking. "We need light, anything." Emily nodded, eyes wide and wet, gripping Clara's sleeve like a lifeline. Suddenly, a sharp scrape clawed across the floor behind them. A breath caught in every throat. The man, the one they called father, lurched forward, wild eyes glowing faintly in the dark. A low growl escaped his cracked lips. "You think this is over? You're fools to believe it." Then a sudden flash, a spark from a lighter, flicked alive somewhere to the side. The glow caught Clara's breath mid-drag and froze her blood. The figure stepping into the half-light was not the man she'd expected. Not calm, not angry, but broken, raw and shattered. The father unraveled before their eyes, his skin melting away like wax, dripping down bone. Except it wasn't skin. It was a mask, a grotesque, lifeless mask. Underneath, the face was nothing, a hollow void where a man should have been. Clara backed away, heart hammering until it seemed to burst. Emily's scream was strangled in the silence. The shadows peeled away, revealing the worst nightmare. The man they thought was their father was a walking ghost, a puppet, a lie stitched together, and then a screech ripped through the house. Metal tore, wood splintered. A hidden panel slid open in the floor. From its depths, a swarm, faces, hands, voices, all trapped beneath years of silence, spilled into the room. Faces twisted with terror, eyes pleading, accusing, voices tangled in desperate chorus. "We're here," one whispered, hoarse and thin. We never left. The crowd recoiled. Emily's knees buckled. Clara's vision blurred. The missing staff, The ones the family claimed were gone, dead, vanished, were alive, broken, prisoners hidden beneath the estate all along. And the worst part? Their torment wasn't at the hands of one man. It was all of them. The family, the servants, the silent watchers, even Clara herself. The house hadn't just been a prison. It had been a tomb. A carefully crafted lie to bury the truth deeper than bodies. You lied. A voice hissed from the darkness. You hid us here. But why? Emily whispered, trembling, voice lost in the swarm. Because we've always known, said the first prisoner, a woman, gaunt and fierce. This family doesn't protect blood. It devours it. Clara's fingers clutched the bracelet so tightly it bit into her skin. The faces around her blurred. The impossible twist clawed through her bones. None of this was a family secret. It was a trap, a cage built from lies, fear, and fate, and betrayal. And the man pretending to be their father? Not a ghost or a monster, but a prison guard, sent to keep them sealed, to keep the truth alive and screaming in the shadows. Silence slammed back down like a guillotine. The chandelier clattered again, shards glittering where the floor had opened. And through that silence, Clara swallowed a ragged breath. Her voice shattered the dark. We all know the real nightmare now. And with it, a new terror whispered. Who else is still trapped underneath? And how long before the house drags them all back into the dark? The heavy silence in the room was broken only by ragged breaths and the distant wail of sirens closing in. Clara's hands shook uncontrollably, the bracelet cold and slick in her grip, slipping between her fingers and clattering to the floor like a dying heartbeat. Faces hovered in the shadows, broken, fearful, hollow. The missing staff, once ghosts beneath the estate, now stood real and raw, their eyes pleading for justice. Outside, the thunder rolled again, heavy and relentless, like the storm inside the house. The mansion creaked under the weight of secrets too long buried. Clara pushed herself up, knees weak, lungs burning. Her voice, rough, urgent, cut through the chaos. This stops now. Everyone turned. The man they called their father staggered forward, gun shaking in his grip, skin pale as ash. You think you can just walk away with this? He snarled. Control this family? You're fools. Emily stepped between him and the others, trembling but defiant. No more lies, no more blood. Adrian, the younger one, was on his feet now, eyes sharp, pain fading into cold fire. He squared his shoulders, voice steady. We're done hiding. Outside, flashing lights carved the night. Police flooded in, moving fast, running with badges and commands. The guests, the family, and the trapped souls all pressed together, faces raw, with a mix of fear and relief. The father faltered, eyes wild, chest heaving. The truth was out. He dropped the gun, hands raised in surrender. A hush fell. The detective, his head bandaged but eyes fierce, moved forward, cuffing the man with swift authority. Clara's throat closed tight, the weight lifting, but the ache still there, a hollow space where trust used to live. Emily wiped tears from her cheeks, her gaze steady on the broken man. No more games. Adrian's steps were slow but sure as he reclaimed the wheelchair pushed to the side. Not because he needed it anymore, but because it was part of the story, his story. A reminder of pain, yes, but also strength reclaimed. The missing staff, freed from their hidden prisons, began to stir, their weak voices finally heard above the silence. Clara watched, heart aching but fierce. The mansion that had swallowed their souls was cracking open. But the end wasn't clean. Someone whispered near her ear, a soft, chilling promise. There's more waiting in the dark. She nodded, eyes sharp. Tonight, the Harper estate breathed in relief. Tomorrow, the truth would keep fighting. And they'd all have to decide what to do with what was left. Hey, listen. This was just the beginning of something huge. And you need to subscribe now if you want to catch every twist, every secret that's still buried. This is the moment to show you care. Smash that like button right now. It's what feeds the algorithm and keeps the stories coming. And don't just watch. Flood the comments with your shock, your theories, your calls for answers. Every voice here matters. But above all, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how it ends. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. Only true fans know why this matters. So act now, because the next chapter, it's going to blow everything wide open.